more than anyone in the world. When you scratch everything else away from Batman, you're left with someone who doesn't want to see anybody die. Here's a look at the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Kingdom Come Armored Batman. On Earth 22, many of the superheroes we know and love have sequestered themselves to their own areas of isolation, plunging the world into chaotic power struggle amongst metahumans. Bruce Wayne, however, continues to operate in his Batcave, creating a militia of robots to monitor and maintain order in Gotham City. While we should really be focused on the future, this guy's stuck in the past, as we are going to be looking at a slightly older figure, but one that I did want to get around to reviewing at some point. Just before, of course, we get a closer look at the Kingdom Come Armored Batman. Getting to the point on the top of his cowl, the figure is going to stand at about 7 3/4 of an inch in height, or the figure is about 20 centimeters tall. Speaking of battle-ready Bruces, sliding over one from one time and bringing one in from an alternate time, here's what the Kingdom Come Batman looks like along with the Armored Batman from The Dark Knight Returns. This one, I believe, was the one that got packed with Superman, so as opposed to the singular release that was all more in gray, this one's done decked out in blue. Size-wise, though, I think we can all kind of agree that we have to give it to the Dark Knight Returns version of Batman. Bigger and bulkier, yes, but does he have a glider on the back of his body? The answer to that question is no. No, the other Batman doesn't have a glider. This one does. And just before we put on the remaining parts to that glider, let's look at the remaining things that come included with the figure. Like, for example, a trading card. Can we all again agree on the idea that McFarlane, I think, has very well moved on from the idea of using figure photography? Just doesn't work, I feel, for a trading card. Source material, especially one from Alex Ross, is definitely the better way to go. That's a nice looking trading card, though. On the back of the card, though, there is a read-up. You could, if you want, pause. You could also read that for yourself. I beat you to it, though. I've already read that at the beginning of this review. Let's move that off to the side. This, by the way, will be, as it always goes, in the rest of my trading card sheets. Then the figure, of course, comes included with a display stand. Slightly lighter of a display stand than what we're usually getting. I mean, obviously it just varies. Figure to figure, it's just a case of whatever they happen to grab off the assembly line. This is just a little bit of a lighter black display stand, but it still has the DC logo branded down below. And of course, there is the peg. We can't forget about the peg. That's going to come actually nice and handy. I always say this when it comes to these figures. You always really want to hold on to these, but this Batman specifically because he has the extra pieces on the back of his body. Those extra pieces, by the way, come to us in the way of the extra parts for his wings. As he does have a glider, the whole back assembly, by the way, can't be removed from the figure, but you can at least remove these if you want to free up a little bit of space. Although it looks a little out of place, the fact that he does have these little prong pieces, the little lips on the sides that basically will attach these. What you'll do is that if you look on the side, you'll see these silver, like little C brackets, and those basically just fit onto the wings. I don't know how often I would really want to do this. I mean, really, once the time I've done this in this review, I'm probably just going to leave them the way that they are. Just because, again, like with these being plastic, even though the plastic doesn't look like the type, that brittle type of plastic. No, it doesn't seem to be that type. But it's still, I think it's the kind, though, that if you are going to be repeatedly removing these wings and putting them back in place, you might eventually get to that point where they're going to snap. So probably just commit to the idea of doing it once, putting the figure on the shelf, and just admiring it for what it is. That's a nice looking figure. Don't really have, from what I can remember, any other Kingdom Come figures. We have yet to really get a Superman. And yet, though, we get an armored Batman. And what a nice looking armored Batman it is. Actually, I read through all of Kingdom Come when I was on an airline ride. This was years ago. Started at the beginning of the book. I got myself the trade paperback, got to the very end of the book, and I still even had time to take a nap before the plane actually landed. Like the look of Batman in the comics. I really like the way they've also handled him in the figure here. Now, he does have the neck guard here. Then that's one thing that's going to limit a little bit of the figure's posability that we'll talk more about in a moment. Head sculpt is good, though, but you really can't do too much when it comes to moving the head around. It's there just to protect Batman and Bruce more specifically from getting any whiplash or neck damage. Notably, though, as well, he has the ears on the top of his cowl that are very soft and plastic. So that will be something, if you store this guy away in a baggie down the road, you might come up later looking at this figure, and his ears kind of look like that. Ooh, don't want to do that. But other than that, though, the head sculpt's really good on this guy. Gives us a definitely more aged-looking Bruce. I like this suit always really worked really well for me. He still keeps kind of more to the color scheme of what you'd expect Batman to be. Like all gray mostly here for his suit. Of course, he's got the black for the top of the cowl as well as the shoulder section here. He does kind of away with the idea of having now a cape, but what he does have instead is this basically big glider apparatus. This glider assembly on the back of the body, of course, now benefiting from having the wings attached onto it, gives him, of course, the means to fly through Gotham City. Funny, though, I've always thought this when I looked on the back for his jetpack, that it looked like the one that the Rocketeer had. I'm sure they've taken some inspiration from the Rocketeer's backpack. Maybe not as much this down below nor on the top, but especially like this section here looks very much like the one the Rocketeer was rocketing around with. Nice use of silver also on the back. This looks to be all like painted. You can see on the back there, or the bottom, that's where the thrusters basically be coming out. Like I said, this whole glider piece looks fully committed to the idea it's not going to be coming off the figure. It's down below here separate, but what they've done is they've added this little support piece on the lower end of his body, which I think is actually on his armor in the comics too, but that just basically prevents the glider from collapsing inward completely. But it does look like it's attached here on the top, so it doesn't look like at all you'd be able to remove it. And obviously, if you're a big fan of Kingdom Come, why would you want to remove it anyways? As for the rest of the detailing on the figure, it doesn't look like there's a whole lot of paint happening. I think more so it's just the plastic that they molded in gray. There are a few little areas like his utility belt there on the front. This, by the way, is a separate piece, and you'll see when I get down to the articulation on the figure that this mid-torso section shifts around a lot. This, by the way, is a softer plastic. It is taped considerably on the front. I guess it's more there just so that these don't bend inward. One of my biggest worries about this figure, obviously just looking at him in the packaging, I can't even tell really what kind of plastic they would be using. But I thought that this would be a harder plastic. Luckily, though, it is a soft plastic and less likely to break. It actually kind of looks like the steering wheel. Was that the steering wheel for the Batmobile, or am I thinking kit? Either way. This is, again, softer plastic. Nice sculpting overall for, like, the mid-torso of his area. Obviously, just underneath, he's got all these additional sculpted lines. Like, the armor, it looks streamlined, and it almost has, kind of, if you go back and watch some of those old, really, really old sci-fi movies, where everything kind of had more like a streamlined look to it. Very much looks like that, especially the way they've sculpted the legs here. Very shiny also, all the black plastic. Other than really his section of his shoulder here is a very shiny plastic. Again, very susceptible as well to fingerprints. You probably can already see some of mine already on this. Shiny boots also down below here as well. Even though he does have slightly larger feet, they also still manage to retain toe articulation. So I'm glad to see that they still have that there too. Speaking though of the figure's articulation, going back to Batman's head, as I did already say earlier, unfortunately, you can't do really much at all with it. The sides, by the way, is a hard enough plastic too that, even just to force it, there's no way you can be able to budge and move that head. It looks up only by that far. It also looks down there as well. You could kind of get your finger in there to pry this back a bit. If you have yourself, for example, a flight stand, which unfortunately isn't packed along with this figure, kind of a missed opportunity, I feel. Not only does he have, by the way, closed fists, so he can't really hold any accessories, but I think at the very least, the figure should have come included with a flight stand. I'm sure I can easily just use one from something else I have in my collection. Just clip that on the bottom of his waist, for example, and just have him looking like he's flying through the air. As for the rest of his arms, as for the rest of the articulation, his arms come out 90 degrees. They're going to be a little harder, though, to move all the way around, not only the fact that he's got the shoulder sticking out like this, but also we can't overlook the fact that the elephant in the room is that he has a big glider on the back of his body as well. He doesn't have a swivel in his bicep. I kind of thought he would have had it, but it doesn't seem to be the case. He does, though, have a swivel in his arm that moves back and forth. He does have a single hinge in the elbow, and he does also have a rotation in the hand. Even though he does have these guards on the front of his hand, these actually are softer plastic, so it doesn't make things at all difficult when it comes to rotating the hands back and forth. Now, for his upper torso is going to be on a ball joint. He does seem to have, as well, a ball joint at the base of his body, like right around the abdomen area here. But this, again, shifts around. So they probably put that over top of a body underneath it. As for the legs are on ratcheted joints, which I was kind of surprised to see. I figured they would just be using ball joints. You take the legs and move them forward, really tight though on the figure. You can move them back. There's also a swivel at the top of the thigh, a double hinge on the knee. Now, here's the only other thing I'm not crazy about when it comes to this figure, is that it's fine and good that they use the pegs down below here in black, but using it up at the top here as well, they should have matched the color to the plastic of his leg, because now you see a very obvious hole, or very obvious peg place, where that hinge has to go all the way through. Why couldn't they have just matched the coloring to the rest of the gray? Other than that, though, he does have a double hinge on the knee. He has ankle articulation back and forth. You can rock it that back and forth this way. And the figure does also have toe articulation as well. A little late to the game, as I sometimes say when we get to looking at these older figures, but a figure that I was definitely still interested to look at. A big fan of Kingdom Come. Still thinking that is this the only Kingdom Come figure that we've gotten? We've yet, I think, to get ourselves a Superman. And you know what? Let's get ourselves a display stand. I just talked about this earlier. Batman's going to have a slightly harder time just because he's got the wings on the back of his body. Get him on the display stand is going to make things a whole lot easier. As I was saying before I interrupted myself, I think there isn't a Kingdom Come Superman. If there isn't yet one, I certainly hope that McFarlane Toys will start releasing more Kingdom Come figures. You know, obviously it's not everybody's thing. I mean, you either like or dislike the look of Alex Ross's work when it comes to certainly painting art panels as opposed to actually, just drawing them by hand. Obviously, he is drawing them by hand, but you know what I mean. Instead of painting them, some people prefer more the classic look to comics. But if you get the chance, and you haven't had the chance yet to read it, Kingdom Come is a great story. But I do hope, though, we get a slightly aged Man of Steel, and certainly some of the other characters that inhabit the world of Kingdom Come in the future, not just the Batman that we get here. This only Batman I think we've only ever gotten from Kingdom Come. I certainly hope, though, there's a lot more. I guess is the case with Kingdom Come Batman, because he does have the more elaborate looking construction on the back of his body and the additional wing assembly, that pretty much ate up all the budget when it came to including additional accessories. This figure doesn't have, like, for example, gripping hands, nor does he have any accessories to fit in those gripping hands had he had them. So he basically only just gets these extra wing pieces, and of course he comes with a regular display stand. I do wish, though, that this figure could have, at the very least, came included with a flight stand. Because for me, at least, other than maybe just displaying him with the way that I have right now, like he looks like he's about to take off, I would have rather preferred to have this guy in flight. Now, I can easily fix the problem on my end, because having collected enough of these DC Multiverse figures, I just happen to have myself a stock here of flight stands. But I think a figure like this, who's already assumed to be flying anyways, should right out the gate, right in the packaging, come included with one as well. This one is still available, as far as I know. I've seen this guy actually show up a couple of times in comic book stores. I did want to get around to reviewing this guy, and again, a little late to the game, but I'm glad I finally got the chance, not only for the review for the sake of you guys being able to see who haven't yet picked up this figure, but also as well to finally have this guy out of his packaging and free to fly. Although he's probably just going to be going on the shelf the way that he is right now. Actually, I kind of like the way I've got him posed right now. Might just do away with the earlier idea of using a flight stand and just favor of displaying him the way he's seeing right now. Still looking at that jetpack, still thinking it looks like the Rocketeer's jetpack. But what do you guys think? Is this a figure you guys could see yourselves picking up? And did you already pick him up? And is this also the only Kingdom Come figure that we've gotten? I keep wanting to think that there was another one that we did get, but the more that I'm thinking about it, I think Batman might be the only one. If you guys, though, in the meantime, enjoyed this video, want to throw it a like. If you guys are loving the content you guys are seeing and want to stick around for more, also let me know down below in the comments section. There are some DC Multiverse figures. I say some. There's a good stack over here that I haven't even had the chance to look at. Just with all the other things I'm looking at here on this channel regularly, I like to mix things up. I don't want to solely just be the channel that's doing DC Multiverse reviews. I don't want to solely just be the channel that's looking at NECA reviews. I like to mix it up so you guys have a variety of things to always come back to. Would you guys like to see me go back and look at some of those older DC Multiverse reviews? Or should we just be looking to the future, not be dwelling in the past? Let me know. If you guys also haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. And if you also haven't already, make sure you're turning on the bell notification. Come back on a regular basis. Also does benefit you to know what new things are coming on this channel. It also benefits from this channel as well from that standpoint. There's always new stuff coming your way. As always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.